Today, I'm going to be showing you lots of tips and tricks that will help you play a lot more confidently in solos while making smart plays. And to do this, I'm going to be explaining and showing you how I got a 15 kill win in the Solo Victory Cash Cup. Solos is the hardest game mode to do well in, especially in tournaments, and I can guarantee that there will be at least one tip in this video that you won't have heard before and will boost your fighting IQ and confidence in solos. With that being said, let's get into the 15 kill win. I start my game by landing at Mega City. A lot of people will tell you it's never worth landing at a big location like this in a tournament and it's too risky. But if you know what you're going to do and have a plan beforehand, you can dominate off spawn at a big location. The first thing you need to do when landing at a big location is to make sure that you land at a building or area on the outside of the location, like I do here. This makes your chances of success off spawn so much higher, simply because you don't have to worry about players attacking you from multiple angles. You should also be familiar with the building or area you land at when it comes to where chests and loot spawn. As you can see, once I have finished looting my building, instead of going and fighting players straight away, I actually go to this area down here and spend some time farming trees to get a few hundred wood. Materials is the hardest thing to get off spawn, so even if you can get a little bit, it will put you at a huge advantage over your opponents off spawn. After I've got some wood, I then go to this other building, again on the edge of Mega City, which is also unlooted, and I then head to the roof to scout for any opponents. I see an opponent who is about to use the zipline and doesn't know I'm on the roof, so I crouch and wait for him to come up. As soon as I can, I take a shot on my opponent and box them while they are stuck in the zipline animation, but I miss my shot and end up taking a risky 50-50 to finish the fight. Instead of taking the 50-50, I should have built up and done something like this to finish the fight. I then see an opponent looting the vault, so I of course push in and start pressuring their builds. The key when you're fighting someone in the vault is to always stay in control of the fight by pressuring with a spray weapon and trying to take as many of their builds as possible. As you can see here, I managed to hit my opponent and take their wall with the same shotgun shot. Once I had their wall, my opponent panicked and I finished the fight with a simple right hand peek, as they have nowhere to go. After looting the vault and heading to zone, my loadout is looking very good, but I know if I can find a cache, I will be able to get another 2 mythic slurp juices. So as soon as I see a cache spawn, I box up around it and start to claim it. While I'm boxed up, an opponent shoots at me, but they only fire a few shots and then give up, which tells me that this player might not be very good. I then notice that they are boxed up right by these gas pumps, so I shoot one and it explodes and does some huge damage to my opponent. I then use an exploit with the ODM gear to phase into my opponent's box and get the kill. In case you didn't know, to do this exploit, all you need to do is attack your opponent's box with the ODM gear, and then as soon as the builds have broken, you can pull out your shotgun and it will cancel the ODM gear's animation. This exploit is extremely useful, and I'll show you some more examples later in this video when I use it to get refreshes in endgame. After getting the kill, I head back to my cache, and I now have a near perfect loadout with 4 slurp juices. The only thing that's missing from my loadout is the mythic pulse rifle. So when I hear the loot island spawn in, I decide to go for it. While I'm going over to it, I see an opponent in a bad spot boxed up in wood, so I decide to use the ODM gear exploit again on them, and I get a huge shot. I then follow up by pressuring their wall, but before I can take the wall, they make a bad edit and I get a free shot on them. After getting the kill, I carry on to the loot island and get up to it with a rift. In these solo cash cup games, you'll be surprised at how often players avoid going for the pulse rifle, and in this game, no one contested me for it, and I now had the perfect loadout. The only thing I am still lacking is materials, so I look for an opponent who I'll be able to kill easily. I start spraying this guy and they don't hold their builds while I'm shooting at them, which tells me they are not the best. I take some fall damage while pushing them, so I try and use a slurp juice, but they keep pressuring my builds. To stop this, I get some counter damage, and they then box up and I can heal easily. I then use the ODM gear exploit on them and get a big shot off, which makes them panic, make a bad edit, and then I get an easy kill and refresh. Next, an opponent boxes up right by me, and I decide to engage in a fight as I'm on the edge of zone and there is no one to third party. I take my opponent's wall and this makes them panic and use their ODM gear. I notice they are stuck in the animation, so I jump down and get an easy 200 pump kill with my mythic shotgun. After getting this kill, I now know that I need to start playing a bit safer as I'm getting into endgame. So I get to a good position in zone and base up on this building, which I know has a launch pad in it that I'll be able to use for an easy rotation later. Once I can see the next storm circle, I use the launch pad to rotate to the circle, and I make sure to stay on the dead side of the zone where there are little to no opponents. I then base up again and look for easy shots on opponents who are rotating late into the zone. I managed to hit this guy for around 100, giving me a huge health advantage, and I decide to push him with the ODM gear exploit. I get the kill easily, and then I head back to my base. This season, if you have an ODM gear, you need to start using this strategy, as it almost guarantees a kill every time. As you can see, I use it again here. I get some damage first to make sure I have a health advantage, and then push him with the ODM gear exploit for a free kill. Soon after I get this kill, I hear two opponents fighting in some wooden builds, so I decide to third party. This first kill was easy. My opponent was boxed up in woods and I had a pulse rifle, so you know what's going to happen there. As for this second kill, I actually looked away from my game for a second and my opponent got a big shot off on me. Luckily for me, the mythic shotgun saved me and I got a 200 pump. This was the biggest mistake I made all game. You need to make sure that you are always focused and ready for anything, especially in solos as you don't have a duo who can save you. I am now on the edge of the next zone, which all my opponents will have to rotate to, so I decide to build up a few layers and get high ground. Because of this, I end up getting a free kill on an opponent who is rotating, and I get a lot of tags on other players. For a while, I then just use the same strategy, keeping high ground and looking for free damage and kills on opponents. But I start to run out of mats, so I decide it's time to try and get a refresh. I use the ODM gear exploit on an opponent and hit them hard, but I can't chase them down, so I decide to leave them and look elsewhere for a kill. When the zone starts to move again, I push an opponent's box and notice they don't have anything built on top of their box, so I throw a ramp down and phase into their box with this trick. I end up missing my initial shot, but I do get a kill and some mats. While getting this refresh, I have sacrificed my position and have ended up on low ground. I then realise that the zone is now on a cliff, and whatever I do, I don't want to end up below it, as I'll get stuck down there and end up dying to zone. I notice this opponent who has clearly ran out of mats and is getting sprayed by high ground, so I take my opportunity and get a free kill on them for even more mats. But the zone pulls up another cliff, which is higher again, so I use my ODM gear to get up as soon as possible, and I manage to get high ground. By now there are only 2 other players left, and I managed to hit one of them for over 100, so I'm feeling very confident. But high ground gets taken back from me, and I end up stuck in the zone and take a lot of damage. I only have 10 white health, but I managed to kill the player who I hit hard earlier, and that gives me some healthy mats. It's now a 1v1, and I know that I most likely have better materials and health than my opponent. I take my time and make sure to build above me, and then I notice my opponent is about to jump off their build to the right because of my visualize sound effects setting. I get ready for them, and then as soon as they drop, I hit my shots and it's enough to get me the win. If you've made it this far in the video, please consider subscribing. If you enjoyed or found any of these tips and tricks useful, you'll be sure to enjoy this other tips and tricks video on screen now, so go watch it.